Ladies and gentlemen, good morning and welcome to my YouTube channel. This is author Germinal Van. Today, the monologue I'm going to deliver to you is about education policy and education reform. And this monologue, of course, is divided in two parts. The first is education policy, and the second is education reform. But before we commence speaking about these two issues, why are we talking about education? Simply because education is a quintessential issue and a quintessential aspect of our lives. A society that doesn't value education as one of its first priorities will end up with a collectivity of ignorance. And that is one of the issues that we're currently facing in our system. So let's start with education policy. In my third book entitled Essays on Issues, The Fundamentals of American Politics, Volume 1, I wrote a part entitled Education Policy. And that part, of course, is composed of 5 chapters in which I decide to elaborate on 3 of them. And these chapters are the privatization of education, school vouchers, and vocational education. Let's start with the privatization of education. Why is it important? Because when the government is too involved in education, it basically disincentivizes parents to make the right choice for their kids. We have now too many schools that are government funded. And the problem with that is that the government is the one that imposes its curriculum upon the school, what it needs to teach the kids. And it also makes the teachers creating unions to focus more on the salary than actually teaching kids what is important in life in order to move forward. Moreover, public schools actually is a disadvantage for the poor because the poor have no choice but has to send his kid to public school. Of course, it's not every public school that is bad, but the public schools that are in dangerous neighborhoods provide a very poor quality of education to those kids. That is why it comes to my second point, which is school vouchers. Now the government has made it difficult for parents to get school vouchers because if many parents get school vouchers, what's going to happen? There will be less and less students going to public schools because school vouchers allowed students to go to private school under government funds. It alleviates also the cost of parents, which is tremendously helpful. And like the majority of Americans, I strongly support school vouchers because it helps families to make the right decisions to choose about the right school for the kids. The ultimate decision is for the parent to decide what kind of skills he wants his kids to get. And the third point is, of course, vocational education. I've been a strong proponent of apprenticeship. Unfortunately, nowadays, vocational education is not as valued as it was in the 19th century. Before, in the 19th century, for instance, people did not need to go to law school necessarily to become lawyers. All they needed was to work for a law firm for a certain amount of time, get the skills under the attorney that they're working for, and then they were fit to pass the bar exam, and then they become attorneys. That was through apprenticeship. But now, with the Department of Education requiring a set of licenses and regulations, it forces people to spend more money on education than they need. That is why I think that vocational education will strongly help people who maybe classical academic disciplines are not for. It's not everyone who wants to learn math. It's not everyone who wants to learn literature. It's not everyone who wants to learn geometry or science. Some people are good are mechanics, for instance. So those people who are good at mechanics, for instance, I believe that through private charity, through private donors, we should create a vocational school that will help people strengthen these skills in mechanics. For people who love to braid hair, I think it's good to create a salon. I would say like a school for learning how to braid hair and other disciplines like that. I believe that everything is valuable. It's important to diversify the academic system to give everyone a chance to completely express its full potential in what he or she believes that he is fit for. That is why it is important for our education policy to change, especially specifically, excuse me, to enhance vocational education. I believe that with vocational education, there will be a lot of kids that will be taken out of the streets. Many kids will not be selling drugs and expose themselves to danger. That is why it's important to implement that. It's important to create more private schools for people to have better choices and broader choices instead of being compelled to go to a government school and to learn something that they're not even interested in. And secondly, I would like now to talk about education reform, and that is the most important part, in my opinion. Our academic system is currently corrupted. Corrupted because we have, unfortunately, postmodernism, cultural Marxism taking over our academic institutions. We have people going to Ivy League schools like Yale, Harvard, or Stanford. Sorry, not Stanford. Stanford's not an Ivy League, but let's say Cornell or even Brown University or Princeton. We have these people going to these schools and saying that they're oppressed because they have teachers or professors teaching them disciplines or subjects that will not even enhance their lives. By subject, I mean women's studies, gender studies, social justice studies. And these people are politically indoctrinated. They graduate with these degrees and are extremely resentful because they're saying that they're not making money, or they're saying that we have a huge income inequality in the US. But yes, we have income inequality because of the kind of major you study. If you study women's studies or if you study gender studies, of course you're not going to make money compared to someone who study computer science or engineering. It's common sense. So these people who are studying those whatever studies are just politically indoctrinated. They're studying majors that will not even benefit them economically. It will it will force them to be in a perpetual state of resentment constantly instead of teaching them entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship to me it's an academic discipline that should be implemented in every school, in my opinion, because anyone has the opportunity to start a business if he or she wants to. That's the beauty of this country. That's the entrepreneurial spirit of the United States. But when you're teaching someone that there are more than two genders, or when you're teaching someone that there is a patriarchy oppressing women, you literally doing no favor to the student. The student gets out of that class completely manipulated by the Marxist professors. So the academic system now has become more of promulgating an agenda than sharing knowledge in order to bring value to the collectivity. That is one of the quintessential issue we are having now in our system. I think it's important that women's studies, gender studies, social justice studies, all these studies that do not do any good to people but only keep them oppressed mentally, I think these discipline should be completely off the curriculum, in my opinion. I think those schools, those Ivy League schools, should definitely remove these academic disciplines from the curriculum because they're not doing any good to these students, but make them believe that they're oppressed although they're going to Ivy League school. How can you be oppressed if you go to an Ivy League school? And now we see at Harvard that the most hardworking community of all of us, which is the Asian community, is being discriminated in the Harvard admission procedure. Because we all know that Asians are doing excellently at school. They always have the best grades and they major in the most financially rewarded academic disciplines, of course. So math, technology, science, computer science. So basically the hard sciences. And then others are being resentful of that. Now they're going to start attacking Asians very soon, saying that Asians are the one taking all the wealth. No, they're not taking all the wealth. They're just focusing on schools and getting the degree and making a better life for themselves and for their families. That's what it's about. So our system is completely corrupt. And we need to completely revamp that and implement new courses such as entrepreneurship, entrepreneurial education. These are the courses people need. Someone may not be good at math. Fine. Teach him entrepreneurship. He will start something for himself. Someone may not be good at English literature or political science or history. Or someone may not be good at biology. Teach him entrepreneurship. He will graduate and immediately will try to start a business. It makes him valuable. It gives him incentive to do something for himself and for his community. That's why it's important. Instead of teaching oppression constantly through gender studies, women's studies, or social justice studies, they're just creating a collectivity of resentful Marxists who want to literally dismantle the system we're living in, and I believe that is wrong. So our educational system needs to recreate its own route and implement new academic discipline that will bring value to the individual instead of trying to maintain him in a perpetual state of fallacious oppression. Ladies and gentlemen, that was my monologue for today. Hit the like button and please leave a comment and do not forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Have a good weekend.